Welcome back to another episode of PeachTEA. This is one of the episodes I was most excited about. With us today we have Victoria Coulter, GROT's V2X Program Manager. In today's episode we are going to do a deeper dive into the world of connected vehicle technology. So Victoria's work sits right at the intersection of safety, mobility, and innovation. Today we are going to talk about what V2X really means, how it's being implemented across Georgia, and what the future of connected transportation looks like. With that, welcome Victoria.
All right, thanks Kamari for having me. Really excited to be here.
To get us started, can you give us a brief overview of your background and how you took on to the current role as the V2X Program Manager?
Sure. So I've been here with GDOT for coming up on 9 years now, and I started with the state in 2016, and I've actually been in signal operations the entire time I've worked here. So I came in as a civil engineer too with our SIGOPS team. Well, at the time, SIGOPS didn't exist yet, but as in our signal operations group, worked my way through that group, and I was most recently the state signal operations engineer. I was in that position for about 4 years. And during that time, CV was really starting to catch on in Georgia. It was a little bit more of kind of a pet project with some of our leadership, but we were definitely involved as far as signal operations went. So there was, because our deployments are mostly at signals, so there was definitely a level of familiarity there. And CV always sort of lived in the signals world. So when they created a new position specifically for this V2X program manager role a few years ago, I was really interested to step up and shift over into that role. So that's sort of how I ended up here.
So for our audience, can you explain what connected vehicle technology means and how that differentiates from the AV technology?
Sure, of course. So connected vehicles, or V2X, is really just the ability for a vehicle to communicate with something else. So that could be vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to some networked application. For us here, as an infrastructure owner operator, that's usually vehicle to infrastructure. And that's sort of the world that we live in, is we're allowing for vehicles to communicate directly with our infrastructure. It happens over a dedicated band that's regulated by the FCC, and it's direct, like radio to radio communication. It's often spoken about in the same kind of breath as AV or autonomous vehicles, but with autonomous vehicles, that's more about the vehicle making its own decision and having autonomy and making decisions on its own. I've seen that most AV applications happen on the vehicle itself, and it's all self-contained. It's some sort of detection within the vehicle, so radar, LiDAR, video on the vehicle itself. And those vehicles aren't typically going to be connected in with our infrastructure. So they're really two separate things. I think there's a world in the future where those AVs start communicating in with our infrastructure, and that's going to be great. Then they'll be connected autonomous vehicles. But right now they're sort of two independent types of technology.
So how does the connected vehicle technology work? How does the communication take place?
For our deployments here in Georgia and mostly around the country, communication takes place between some radio at the roadside and then a radio on the vehicle. We call the roadside radio a roadside unit, or an RSU. And then on the vehicle itself, we'll install an aftermarket onboard unit, or an OBU. There's a dedicated band, the 5.9 gigahertz band, that's regulated and protected by the FCC, that's dedicated just for this type of communication. Messages are sent over that band in a standard format that's established by SAE, the Society of Automotive Engineers. So you'll see message types like SAE J2745, and that's a specific type of message. So messages that are being broadcast over that band are all using a standard message format. So maybe an SAE J2745 message that's going to be standardized across any vendor that's out there. So there's interoperability between vendors and manufacturers of the radios. That means if we put out a radio here in Georgia, a vehicle that can communicate with that radio can also drive down to Florida and speak to their radios across the country. In Utah, they've got a lot of deployments. It's going to be the same messages that are coming through, and they'll interact through the OBU in the same way.
So with that being said, can you walk us through the history on what GDOT has deployed so far? GDOT has been in the world of connected vehicle technology since 2017. Can you give us a brief history on what GROT deployed so far?
Right. So back in 2017, AASHTO put out what they called the SPAT challenge. So they challenged states to, by the year 2020, broadcast SPAT messages from 20 different locations. That was for every state. As SPAT is signal phasing and timing data. So we took up the challenge there and selected 2 RTOP corridors that ended up being 54 intersections. We deployed radios, we started broadcasting messages, and we finished off that SPAT challenge. But after we put out those 54 radios, we worked with leadership and made a case that there are some real safety and mobility applications and benefits that are going to come from having these radios out on our roadside in the future. So we had blessing to expand out those deployments a little bit more. So the next year we expanded out by another 150 radios, and then a few more the year after that. And it's just expanded ever since. At this point, we've put out nearly 2,500 radios across the state, mostly here in the metro area, but we've also got large deployments down in Savannah and then along Interstate 85 down near the state line. We've got those radios all out at traffic signals, and our goal by the year 2033, as part of our 10-year plan, will be to put out RSUs at every state-maintained traffic signal across the state of Georgia. So that's a total of 6,500 we're aiming for by that time.
Yeah. So what do general public need to know about these deployments? So
a question I get from people when I tell them what I do for work or when they hear about these deployments is usually, how do I get a radio in my vehicle? Or does this mean I get one of those buttons that turns all the lights green? Unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. Our deployments in Georgia are mostly focused toward fleet applications because we do have to install those aftermarket radios into the vehicles. The best place for us to put those right now is going to be fleet vehicles. So we're installing them on transit buses, on emergency vehicles like fire, ambulance, that sort of vehicle. So there's not going to be a lot that the general public is seeing in their vehicle at this time. There is a future, and we work with groups such as CAMP. CAMP is the Crash Avoidance Metrics Partnership. That's a group of automakers that is following this technology really closely. And I think we're sort of on a precipice right now of getting these radios installed into vehicles coming off the lot or coming off the assembly line, but we're just not quite there yet. So backing back up a little bit, all of our radios right now are going to be on some sort of fleet vehicles. So the applications that we're using with them are things like transit signal priority, emergency vehicle preemption, things like that. That doesn't mean they don't affect the general public. If you're in an area where a bus is outfitted with an OBU and they've got TSP, transit signal priority, programmed onto a traffic signal controller, those OBUs are requesting signal priority to get their commutes back on track and to get people where they need to go more efficiently. And just like EVP is, while it's not affecting you and your vehicle as you're driving, it's improving safety and it's improving the response time of these emergency vehicles to incidents as needed. So.
Yeah. You gave us an overview of the history, but could you walk us through what GROT is currently deploying, mainly for the benefit of our ITE audience, those who are not too much on the ITS side of things? What has GROT deployed most recently? What are some of the most innovative deployments out of the big list that you have?
Oh, sure. A huge part of what we do is the physical deployment of the radios. So we're putting radios out across the state because we want to establish sort of a baseline of letting folks know if they've got these radios, hopefully soon in their vehicles, then they'll have them no matter what signal they're driving through in the state. On the application side, the big ones that we're working on right now are TSP and EVP. A few specific examples of those I can dive into a little bit. We've got a grant right now, an ATC MTD grant, which is specifically for use cases involving emergency vehicles in the metro, in the Midtown Atlanta area, near the connector and North Avenue, Spring Street, that sort of area, right there near Georgia Tech and Emory Midtown. The use cases for that project are going to be for heroes that are coming southbound off the interstate that need to make a turnaround and respond to an incident northbound. We'll be able to place preemption calls, flush out traffic down North Avenue and Spring Street so that they can get off and make that maneuver to go back northbound. That's one use case. Another is a similar emergency preemption flush to get ambulances off of the connector and over to Emory Midtown, because that's a congested route. They need to flush out traffic. So we've worked together with the SIGOPS team to do the signal timing to flush out those corridors as those vehicles come through there.
Do you have a number of vehicles where you deploy?
Oh, sure. So for that one, we've got 54 Hero trucks and 54 ambulances. So just over 100 vehicles where we've deployed OBUs on those for that project. A few other projects that we've got going on through the state. We've got some TSP projects through, it's really Gwinnett County that's really stepped up and gotten all of their buses equipped with OBUs so that if you're in Gwinnett County and you're on a bus that's running more than 10 minutes late, that bus is going to put in a priority call and try to get back on schedule. Gwinnett's a huge one. We're also working with MARTA. They've got several BRT and ART projects in the pipeline that they're really MARTA projects, but we're staying in step with them and making sure we've got roadside units deployed along those routes so that when it comes time to program their queue jumps and their signal priority timing, RSUs will be there and ready for them as they start turning on those systems. Another area where we're doing TSP is down in Savannah. We've worked with CAT, or Chatham Area Transit, down there to equip signals along 3 of their bus routes for that same TSP to get buses running back on time there. So if there's any other local agencies out there or transit agencies out there that are interested in transit signal priority, we'd love to help them out through a partnership and installing an onboard unit on their vehicles and making sure their routes are equipped with those radios so that they can get that application up and running.
Have you seen any benefits from any of these deployments yet?
So several of our EVP deployments, emergency vehicle preemption deployments, we've just activated the system on a couple different projects. So that ATC MTD one that I mentioned, we're also working closely with Henry County. That's a Henry County Smart Grant project where they've got EVP down there too. But we're trying to stay in step with them as they do their before and after analysis. But we've very recently activated those systems, so we're sort of collecting data right now. But we'd like to be able to publish some metrics afterwards on reduction in response time or number of stops that trucks are having to make on these corridors. It's not data that I've got ready to to roll yet. I've heard from other deployments across the country. This isn't from Georgia, but other places in the country, I've heard of TSP being able to get buses back on track by about 4%, improve their on-time metrics, which in the transit world is, I've heard, a really huge improvement there. So I'm hoping to see the same results in Georgia, but I don't really have those numbers ready. Application similar to transit signal priority, it would be freight signal priority. It's the same basic concept where a truck would put in a request for some additional green time or an earlier return to green. The goal of transit signal priority or freight signal priority is really, it's not about reducing travel time or about improving on-time performance. It's more about just reducing the number of stops that the trucks are making. The idea there is if the truck is, well, first off, it's better on the truck because they're burning less fuel, so that's better. That's going to be better for the trucking company, but it's better for us because that's less wear and tear on the pavement. It's also less emissions from the truck as it's making those movements. So we've got one pilot that we did down in Savannah for freight signal priority, and we're also working with, thank you to H&TB for the work we're working with, speaking with several other freight companies right now to see if there's maybe some additional opportunities for partnerships there, if there's other companies out there.
I think that covers, you almost answered my next question. Okay. You spoke about the Gwinnett County and other agencies. The next question I had in my mind was to ask how you're working with all these different agencies to accomplish the deployments you have planned for.
Yeah, so we're just sort of right now wrapping up deployment effort that we did with ARC, the Atlanta Regional Commission, where we had some matching funds available to agencies that were in the ARC region, where local agencies could contribute a 20% match, and through a contract that we have here out of the TMC, we could do a turnkey RSU deployment to a number of signals throughout their areas. So we had 5 cities and counties participate in that. I know I keep mentioning Gwinnett County. Through that contract, we're able to deploy radios to 385 intersections, which made up about half of Gwinnett County. We had several other agencies participate. Johns Creek deployed to all 80 of their signals. I won't get into every single deployment, but we were really happy to see the response that we got from that. And, so as we've gone through those deployments, we've made sure, routinely stay in step of the process as those radios have gone out. As I said, we're sort of wrapping that up right now, that first effort now, but we do have another funding source or bucket of funds available for the next round of those. I'm not sure if we're going to call them RCV the way we did the last ones, or if we're going to have a name for that program. But we're definitely looking for more local partners to work with as we continue out those deployments. So those can be used. I know I said earlier our goal was to deploy to all state routes across the state. We'd also love to fill in local ones as well. There's 10,000 signals in the state of Georgia, so it's a large group of them that are still going to be handled by local agencies. We'd love to keep working with our local agencies to fill in the gaps between the state routes there. We've got these contracts already in place where we work with the locals. Frequently we're already having those meetings. We've got those relationships in place. So there's plenty of opportunities there, I think, to continue working with those local agencies.
I think that's wonderful. So moving on to our next segment, I wanted to ask you about ITS World Congress. It was a mega event and it was a huge success. We almost had the entire world come to Atlanta. Would you like to speak about what went into the planning for ITS World Congress and what GROT deployed to make it a success?
Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't just an awesome event? There was so much effort. We had so much planning and effort that went into it just for our participation. I'm blown away by what ITS America does to put on an event of that size and magnitude. But knowing that it was coming and it would be, right here in our backyard, just a few miles away at the Georgia World Congress Center, we started early, putting our heads together, trying to think of what we could do to have a good showing from the state of Georgia at this event, to show off, some of our deployments and some of our applications that we have out there. So we somehow came up with this crazy idea to invite the industry to actually participate in what we ended up calling the Day One Deployment District. So we put a call out to vendors and manufacturers, and we said, we've got radios here in Georgia, in Atlanta, right around the World Congress Center area. We've got radios out there. We're broadcasting messages from those radios. We made a list. We're broadcasting SPAT, MAP. We can broadcast traveler information messages. Just what's the interest here? We first asked you, is there an interest? Do you have applications that you'd want to come and highlight and demonstrate there in the field? And we were pretty blown away by the response that we got from that. We ended up getting, I think, 14 separate vendors in some capacity that stepped up and had an application or an OBU, something they wanted to highlight and show off, and show during the event. And our first thought was that the folks would just sort of handle it, right? To have their ride-along demonstrations. But we were, ITS America and USDOT, they really took hold of this idea too, and they said, no, this is something we want to include as part of the event. So they actually carved out a portion of the demonstration area specifically for this Day One Deployment District, or DOD, we started calling it. And we had 7 stations there in the demo area where participants could come and learn more about V2X and see it working with live technology in the field. It wasn't a standalone demonstration in a parking lot. It was on our live streets. 4 of those stations were actually ride-along ride-along experiences. And we were really thrilled to be able to host one of those ourselves. So we had 2 GDOT vehicles that we could get people into and drive them around this circuit, sort of around downtown Atlanta there, and be able to highlight where our deployments were, the physical infrastructure, and then show an application on a tablet in the vehicle and show on the screen, like, this is, that traffic signal right there is broadcasting that green light that you can see, and here it is on the screen, as well as other applications that were coming in. It was really great, seeing the number of people that turned out for that as well.
Do you have a count on number of attendees?
Yes, so we had there were over 1,000 people that came through the DOD in some form or fashion that visited one of the stations. They had nearly 350 of those were in the GDOT vehicle. So out of 6,000 attendees at the conference, there was a huge number of those that made it over. And we were really impressed that folks were willing to hop on a shuttle and come up, and they were interested in seeing what we had to show. So like I say, we had 350 of them in our vehicle that went through. Those people ranged from, people that had never heard of V2X before. Some were agencies that knew sort of what it was, but had never really seen it in action. So it was an opportunity to sort of show the possibilities of what types of applications we can. And we also had some attendees from USDOT and from ITS America that rode through. Some of them were very familiar with the technology, and some were a little bit less familiar, but had heard of it, and this made it, I think, real to them. They could see it in their hands, because it's really hard to describe what CV connected vehicles are and what the technology does, and some of those benefits, those safety and mobility benefits that are out there, until you really see it in your hand and you see, like, I can see, like, a live message from the street that there's a pedestrian in a crosswalk over there. I can see that in my vehicle, and you can connect together the possibilities of what that could mean in the future. If you can give a heads-up display to the driver, can you also get that information into, like, say, the autonomous, going back all the way back to the autonomous vehicle, can you actually get that message all the way through to the vehicle so that it can make decisions and know where other vehicles and vulnerable road users are around it. And I've gotten way off topic here. Sorry, but anyway, it made that that technology real, and was able to put it in the hands of all sorts of different people that came through.
Were there any cool demonstrations from ITS World Congress that you would like to highlight?
So one newer one that I think I just alluded to a little bit there. Our SIGOPS team deployed LiDAR along Northside Drive just last summer, so just before World Congress, but knowing that we had some other large-scale events coming up with a lot of pedestrians, we deployed LiDAR along that corridor at 6 traffic signals. The LiDAR can scan an intersection and can detect and classify everything that it sees at the intersection, right? So vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists, other vulnerable road users, and it can package all that information up into what we call a SDSM, or a sensor data sharing message. So we can package together one message that shows where all the pedestrians and bicyclists are, within a footprint of an intersection, and broadcast that out through our radios. Then through the onboard unit, we were able to receive that message and know exactly where those pedestrians were. So if the onboard unit knew that there was a pedestrian within a certain range, right, or like cone of vision in a certain range, distance away, it would pop up a message on the screen, warning, 2 pedestrians 20 feet ahead, that sort of information. And we were able to highlight that through a demonstration in our vehicle, and I know that other ride-alongs were able to do it in different ways in their vehicles as well. So that SDSM is a really new message type, like nationwide. So that was a really interesting thing for us to be able to highlight. We had another application that we were really excited to debut. It was really more of a V2V, a vehicle-to-vehicle application, where we outfit a Hero with an OBU, and it simulated responding to an incident. And in that, while responding to the incident, it could broadcast out, dynamically create a map message that it could broadcast to vehicles in front of and behind it to broadcast out information about what it was doing, how it was responding. And that message would flash either yellow or red, whether the truck was slow or stopped at an incident. That's an application that we're, as I say, we had just developed it right before World Congress, so we're still sort of testing that one out. But we see a future there where we can deploy that application on our heroes as they're responding to incidents on the interstate, as well as we see another world where that would be great on school buses. Imagine if the school bus, we all know if the school bus is flashing red, you have to stop and you can't proceed past it. But if it could also broadcast out a message in front of and behind it that would show a red indication inside the vehicle, that would just be an extra reinforcement to stop when those buses are in the area. So that's another one we're really excited about.
Thank you for walking us through all that. Could you also, listening on some of the ITS meetings, like monthly meetings and announcements, there was also an announcement made about the CV pool fund study. Would you like to speak about that?
Oh, yeah. So we try to stay in step, with other states around the country. There's a few different opportunities for that, where states meet together and share sort of successes, lessons learned, all of that, with connected vehicle technology, because it is, even though it's been around since the 90s, it's newer on the deployment side. And one of those opportunities is a pooled fund study. There was a connected vehicle pooled fund study that was hosted by Virginia and it has been for the past 15 years, that Georgia's been a part of for quite some time. I don't know if it was all 15 years, that has been a part of and has been an active member of, for quite some time. That study is getting ready to come to an end, but all the pooled fund members said, well, there's still more we want to learn here. There's more to research as far as connected vehicles go, so we want to keep going. So Georgia stepped up and we said, well, we'll create a V2X pooled fund study, just to give it a different name as we're shifting over. So Georgia's going to host that next iteration of that pooled fund study moving forward. We're getting ready to transition. We've got biannual meetings. The next one's coming up in December, so we'll sort of take the reins from Virginia then and move forward. Georgia will be the host of that. We've got 19, actually this morning I got an email, we have 20 member agencies. We just had one more state join. So there's 20 agencies, mostly states, but a couple of local agencies around the country. The idea behind a pooled fund study is that essentially these 20 different agencies will all pull together our funds and come up with projects that we want to, research projects that we'll put out to the consultant community. They can step up and do research for different projects as far as connected vehicles go. So we're really excited to take that one on. We're going to be working with Georgia Southern as our research partner there. And like I say, we kick off in December, and we're really excited to sort of step up into that role. Georgia hasn't hosted a pooled fund. We participate in pooled fund studies, across the board and all sorts of different topics, but this is the first one that we're hosting. So it's been a really interesting process of, working together with different groups within GDOT that we don't work with every day. So I've worked a lot with research and with our legal teams to get this contract up and running and to get the study up and running.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. So with that being said, how do you see the next 5 years or even next 5 to 10 years of the CV efforts?
So big thing right now, we'll keep moving forward with deployments. We're trying to get those radios out to as many signals as we can across the state, as we really feel that we're not going to benefit well to having this one area is ready for CV, but not the rest of the state. So we'll continue forward on those deployments. That's sort of something that sort of moves along in parallel with anything else that we're doing. We'll continue looking for opportunities to work with fleet owners, so transit agencies, those freight companies that we're speaking with, emergency vehicle fleets. We'll continue working with them to find opportunities for onboard unit deployments and to and different applications that they're interested in. That's sort of the nearest term. We want to continue building out, what we've already started working on. And as we continue out, building out our existing applications, just expanding those, we want to continue developing more applications, because the heart and benefit of the connected vehicle technology is that it's not one box to accomplish one goal on the vehicle. We can have an onboard unit on the vehicle that can handle several different applications, because we don't want to keep adding like a single box to there are multiple boxes to a vehicle for individual goals. So we're looking for other opportunities for applications that we can add on to our existing deployments as well. So we'll continue to look after those VRU applications like the LiDAR SDSMs. So if we've already got a radio on a bus that can request signal priority, can we also get information to that driver about where the pedestrians are in the area, and add in some of those applications as we can. Another huge thing we're looking into right now is work zone safety and safety applications for the hero drivers. So that's a big thing we're going to be doing research on this year, and trying to, we've already got radios on the vehicles. Is there something from the connected vehicle side that we can do to improve safety as they're out there, working in traffic and responding to incidents? So those are sort of our big application focuses as we move forward.
If someone wants to find more information, where can they find it?
So they can go to our website. We published earlier this year. We'll continue updating things there, but we've got more details on what connected vehicle technology is, what our deployments are, what we're doing with local partners, and we'll keep adding to that as more projects pop up. There's also our CV roadmap, our V2X roadmap, that we updated earlier this year as well, and that's available on our website. That sort of contains everything I've talked about today and what our goals are on the next 10 years, all of that. So
if someone wants to connect with you or reach out to you, or if there is an agency who wants to reach out to you, would you be open to that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're, I think I mentioned earlier, we're getting ready to have that next round of the next big round of deployments, and we've got opportunities if there's local agencies that want to deploy, either don't have any radios and want to start deploying radios, or they've got radios and aren't sure what to do with them, want to talk through applications. I'm always happy to talk with local agencies. They're the ones that are, that have contacts with the fire departments and can connect us with the transit agencies, and they know the needs of their areas. So I would love to work more with local agencies to expand applications at our current deployments and get more deployments out there.
Okay. I think that's great to hear. I think we should close it with that. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Just something I probably should have mentioned, back at the top. I'm really excited for where Georgia sits in this space and how much support we get from leadership in really anything technology related. We started off in 2017 with our 54 locations, and that grew so quickly to over 2,500, and we've got their support to continue forward. There's been a lot of work by my leadership and those that came before me to kind of get us to where we are today with the largest radio deployment in the country. And even now, I think we're just starting to scrape the surface of operational and safety benefits that are out there. So I'm really excited to continue working forward as we keep working with OEMs, partners here in Georgia, and our partners with other states to get the technology into the hands and the vehicles of the traveling public. And I just wanted to thank you again for having me on today and the opportunity to speak about the program.
Thank you for doing this with us.
Yeah, of course.
And for the IT crew, if you find this interesting, you can follow us on YouTube and Spotify. But thank you for doing this with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Kumar.